I ultimately cost a wannabe business mogul thousands of dollars and helped get him sued. And it all started with a seemingly insignificant job search on Craigslist. About 6 or 7 years ago. I was in a strange transitional period in my life. I was supposed to be about 4 months away from leaving for military boot camp. A plan that eventually changed. But that's a different story. In the meantime, my savings were dwindling. And I desperately needed a part-time job to get some cash in my pocket while I was waiting. Like any enterprising person in their 20s, I turned to Craigslist to see what was out there. I've always hated sales jobs, especially the commission-based ones. But for a short-term gig, I figured it could be a quick way to make some money. I sent out a few applications to listings that looked promising. A few days later, I got a call from a man who introduced himself as Leo. He told me he was opening a new store and needed associates to staff it. He said my resume looked good and asked if I could come in for an interview on Friday morning. I decided to be upfront with him. I mentioned the address he gave was a longer drive than I'd typically make for a retail job and asked what the hourly pay was, just to see if the trip was even worth my time and gas. He confidently told me they were planning to offer an hourly rate in the mid-teens, on top of commission. That sounded like a decent deal. So I agreed to be there at 8 a.m. on Friday. When Friday arrived, it was a cold, rainy day. I put on a nice shirt and tie and battled heavy traffic to get to the address Leo had provided. I was familiar with the area from a previous job, and I soon found the strip mall I was looking for. But as I scanned the storefronts, I couldn't see any sign for the company name he had mentioned. What I did see was a single, empty retail space with no signage at all, and 2 people visible inside. Okay, I thought. Maybe they're brand new and haven't set the store up yet. No big deal. I had arrived early, anticipating the terrible traffic. So I decided to wait in my car for a few minutes. As I sat there, I saw a young woman in business casual attire walk to the window of the empty space and take down a sign. I could just make out the words, "Retail space for rent. Call 1-800 blah blah." A little weird, I thought. But I rationalized that maybe this was literally their first day in the building. About 5 minutes before the interview, I walked in. The second my foot crossed the threshold, my internal BS meter didn't just go off, it shot from yellow alert straight to the highest level. A metaphorical black watch plaid. The entire room was furnished with cheap plastic folding tables, the kind you'd see at a college beer pong tournament. The bare walls were plastered with laminated charts covered in dollar signs, stock photos of unnaturally happy people, and an organizational chart that formed a depressingly familiar shape. A pyramid. God damn it. I had been tricked. At this point, I figured the drive home would be miserable with traffic, so I might as well stay and have a little fun with it. The young woman I'd seen earlier approached me, introducing herself as Chloe. She welcomed me and asked me to have a seat. She then sat at her own plastic desk and began pretending to sort through paperwork, though it was obvious she was just shuffling the same pages around aimlessly. We started chatting, and I asked how long she'd been working for Leo. About 6 months. She chirped. I'm his secretary. You're going to love it here. Just then, a man in his early 30s walked out from a back office. He was clean-cut but wore an ill-fitting suit that looked like it came straight off a rack at JCPenney. As he approached with a wide smile, Chloe exclaimed, "Oh, Dennis. Our newest recruit is here. The man froze mid-stride and shot her a glare so cold it could have frozen the rain outside. It's Leo. Chloe. We've been over this, he said through gritted teeth. He quickly turned his attention back to me, flashing a bright, forced smile as if to say, hard to find good help these days. Am I right? Leo sat me down with a group of other applicants in a circle of chairs, explaining we were going to start with a group interview. As more hopeful candidates filed in, Leo stood up and began his presentation. He told us all about an exciting new opportunity from a company called Cutco. My heart sank, as I'd later find confirmed online. Experiences like mine were disturbingly common. One commenter on a forum shared an almost identical story. When I started reading this, I was thinking, is this vector marketing? And then lo and behold, it's vector. I went to a vector sales pitch once. Got tricked into it. Leo pulled out a set of knives and launched into his spiel about how we could make as much money as we wanted, all while setting our own hours. Then came the masterstroke of his deception. He held up a college textbook, claiming that his company's revolutionary tactics were so respected they were featured in university-level texts. He opened it to a bookmarked page, carefully covering parts of the text with his hand, ensuring the only thing we could clearly see was the word Cutco, in large, bold letters. To my dismay, many of the other interviewees were completely eating it up. A pregnant woman next to me seemed particularly thrilled, whispering about how this could be the perfect job to work around her pregnancy and the baby's arrival. Leo droned on and on about the fortune he'd made and how hard workers will rise to the top quickly. Then, Leo announced he needed to take a quick phone call and gave us a 5-minute break. As he stepped away, he left his college textbook on the table. Oops. This was the moment Leo's entire scheme crumbled. In his haste, he made a foolish decision, completely unaware that this single, careless act of leaving a book on a table would lead to his own downfall. I picked it up, turned to the earmarked page, and started reading. Just as I suspected, the chapter was about pyramid schemes, and it used Cutco as one of the primary examples of how these scams operate. The text detailed how such models are not economically viable and are designed to exploit the people at the bottom. I decided the group needed to know. I cleared my throat and began explaining how pyramid schemes work and how Leo was trying to scam us all. They looked at me with disbelief. So I told them, when he gets back, just ask him what you have to pay to get started. That simple question was enough to plant a seed of doubt. The hopeful looks on their faces were replaced with suspicion. A few minutes later, Leo walked back in, his slick salesman smile back in place. One of the women in the group immediately asked the question, so, what do we need to do to get started? Leo's smile widened. Well, he said smoothly, all you need is your first set of knives to demonstrate. You can sell that set directly or have them order a new one and keep that as your demo kit. All you have to do is pay the startup fees for it. And that's when all hell broke loose. The room erupted. One young guy jumped to his feet and started cursing Leo out, yelling that he was a time-wasting asshole for trying to pull such a stunt. The pregnant woman burst into tears, her hope of a flexible job crushed in an instant. Leo looked utterly confused and flustered, frantically asking who had told them all this. His eyes darted around the room before finally landing on me. The moment it became clear I was the wrench in his machine, his face hardened. You need to leave, he snarled, But it was too late. People were yelling at him. He was yelling at me. And Chloe, his secretary, was frantically trying to convince everyone she had never met Leo before today and had no idea what was going on. We all got up and walked out, leaving Leo standing alone amidst the chaos of his failed scam. As I walked to the door, I saw it, the retail space for rent sign, leaning against the wall where Chloe had left it. I got into my car and immediately dialed the number. This single phone call reveals a key part of my personality. I wasn't just content to escape the trap. I was determined to dismantle it. This proactive step would ultimately seal Leo's fate. I got through to a woman at the property management company and asked about the space Leo was in. She apologized and said the property had just been leased. I pressed, asking if she knew how long the lease was for, explaining I was really interested in the location. She mentioned the official paperwork hadn't been signed yet. In fact, they were on their way to the property to sign everything with the new leaseholder in a few hours. I took a deep breath and told her everything about the fake job ad, the group interview, and Leo using their unleased property to run a pyramid scheme. She became furious, explaining that this kind of thing happens all the time. Scammers use a space for a fly-by-night operation and then back out of the lease at the last minute. She thanked me profusely for the information, and I hung up, figuring that was the end of it. I was wrong. A few weeks later, an email from Leo landed in my inbox. It was a long, rambling tirade about how I had ruined his life. He wrote that the property management company found out what he was doing and, citing a clause in the preliminary paperwork he signed, were refusing to refund his down payment. He said he knew it was me who called me a terrible human being, and whined about how he was now out thousands of dollars for the space and his supplies. This email reveals Leo's greatest fatal flaw, his unrestrained arrogance. Believing he was the victim, he couldn't resist lashing out. And in doing so, he handed me the very evidence needed to ensure he'd face real consequences. I called the 1-800 number again and spoke to the same woman. When I told her I had an email from Leo where he essentially admitted to everything, she was ecstatic. She said it would be invaluable for their legal proceedings. I was more than happy to forward that email along to her. Her lawyer later told her it should be an open and shut case. I guess you could say I like to be a helper. And as for the knives? Turns out, they're not even that good. As a commenter on the internet succinctly put it, they're garbage. Especially at that price point. Do not buy Cutco knives. This story is a powerful reminder that if a job opportunity seems too good to be true, it almost certainly is. A little bit of skepticism and a willingness to look closer can not only protect you but can bring a scammer's entire operation crashing down. What's the shadiest job interview you've ever been a part of? And how did you handle it?